Hi folks, big welcome, Stephen Bull. We're in Deptford, Aubry Street today, and we're going to be talking about a really interesting house, which is a Baroque house, dates from 1706 I believe, but we'll double check on that when we get there. But prior to that, I just wanted to show you the door cases in Aubry Street, because these are all quite remarkable. These were all due to be demolished in the 1970s. And if we just pan round to the left side here, you'll see that all these have actually been demolished, half the street gone. So what we actually had, we had a mirror image of these houses on both sides of the street. And the council decided that these were more fit for purpose, and this is how they thought people should live. So they demolished these fine Baroque houses. And these houses here are particularly interesting to me because of the door canopies. But you'll notice they've got a little multi up here, little cherubs. And they've got nautical bits and pieces in their hands. So on this one here we have a set of dividers and a map, and then on this side we have a pen and again some measuring sticks here for right angles and such, so on and so forth. And then on this side there's what looks like again a quill pen and a pair of dividers, and on this one there's a sextant and for mapping. So I think these are probably to do with map drawing, and this would all be part of the fact that the Master Shipwrights is just down on the river, not far away, and this is where Henry VIII had his boat yard, or shipyard as it was called. And during the Georgian period it became the main victualling centre for the whole of the British Navy. So they were getting the supplies in here for 140,000 sailors and mariners, so that every ship that left was well provided with not only naval rum for your tot of rum, but also all the provisions for when they go on their various journeys. So a huge centre of trade, not only for all the produce that was coming in here, but also all the timber. The Surrey docks are not that far away. All the timber was coming in from the Baltic, and the shipbuilding took place here. And these were built, as I understand it, for those of senior positions within the Royal Navy and within the Master Shipwrights complex, the dockyards. So this is where they live. So some of them are different grades and some of them are different standards, but very impressive with these 8-foot front doors and the decorative canopies. High status, very high status, and very well built. So we're going to walk down here and have a look at the property that we currently have on the market at the moment. So follow me, but look at the corbel sets, which are really set out in a nice fan shape, nice pattern. The only problem is, of course, when Thames Water come down here, or the services come down here, they dig them up, but they haven't got the ability to put them back. And the way they work is that the services come down and they repair the road. That's one crew. Another crew comes down to put the tarmac in, and then theoretically this mystical third crew would come down and they would actually re-put the sets back into how they should be. It doesn't take a lot to work them out or to do it properly, just a little bit of thought and a great deal of care. But that seems to be lacking, I'm afraid, in the repair of this road the further we go down. Hi folks, so we come down to the other end of Aubry Street now, and this is the house that we have on the market at the moment, number 38 Aubry Street. And Aubry Street was first known as Union Street, and it's got its name in 1707 with the Act of Union, and the Act of Union was the union between Scotland and England, and that's where by Parliament it became known as Great Britain. So quite a monumental moment, and this street was named after that date, and that's that particular Act of Parliament. They were built in 1707 by a local bricklayer who was commissioned to build them by the Royal Navy, and his name was Thomas Lucas. And when we were working on one of the houses along here a number of years ago now, we found a nice red brick with the name Lucas stamped in it. Very fine house, and these are such high-grade buildings back in the day. Really nice red rubbers around the windows and the window heads, flush windows with the brickwork. We have basement windows down here which have been bricked up at some stage, which could afford to be opened up to give some illumination and some ventilation to what would be the basement kitchen. But altogether a remarkable house. And this is what I refer to as a Baroque house. It's built just in front of St Paul's, which was built in around about 1707. And so during the reign of Queen Anne. And that's known as a very fine Baroque church, and this is a very fine Baroque house. So if you were actually wanted to listen to some music while we're actually looking at this house, then I couldn't recommend anything more than Pergolesi's Stabat Mater, which is fantastic, or a bit of Corelli or Albinoni, all of which were known as Baroque artists, and it would go so well with this particular house. We'll go inside now and have a look around, but before we go inside, I just want to draw your attention to the front elevation, that it's had some work done to it at some point, because the brickwork has changed just above the window heads, you'll notice here. So we've got dark brickwork up until just above the window heads, and then the brickwork changes, and we seem to have lost the red bricks around the window on the top two windows, and also there should be a row of red bricks here at the join above to the right hand side of this blind reveal, and there should be red brick rubbers here on this side abutting to this building, and there should be a blind reveal in here. You'll notice that this has got two windows and a blind reveal. This should have two windows and a blind reveal, and it's missing, so it's been re-bricked at some stage. But strangely, in the re-bricking, they've kept the top pediment as it should be, with the stepped brickwork, which doesn't exist in these other ones which have been re-bricked. So a lot of attention and detail to keeping the coping stones correct and the reveals at the top, but no blind reveal above the door, which is a bit strange. But bearing in mind that it's 300 years old, it's hardly surprising that it's had some work done to it. And also when you look at the terrace would have carried further on in this direction towards Greenwich, and it would have carried on further on in that direction towards the High Street. And I believe that this was one of the main thoroughfares going through to Greenwich. There is a series of these streets running down parallel with each other, and they were all demolished, and this is the sole survivor. And it is said that these are the finest examples of domestic dwelling that were constructed within the first 20 years of the 18th century. And I well believe that, because I haven't seen anything quite so original and untouched as this house. Charming, absolutely charming. What's unusual about them is the large panes of glass, and next door I believe has got Portland stone window sills, but this one has got wooden window sills on all elevation, which is typical of an early 18th century house. And originally it would have had a very large door. If we can just draw your attention to this door here, this is an original door. Just to give you some kind of height, bearing in mind I'm 6'2", so where are we now? 8-foot door. And this is completely original. And what's happened on this one here is that this door has been changed in 1800s, and I would suspect it's around about 1810 that it's been altered. And the reason that they altered the doors was so that you had a smaller door, but it allowed you to have a fan light in at the top. When these houses were first built, they wanted as much security as possible, so they didn't want to have a fan light above the door for fear of someone breaking in, climbing in. But in the 1810s, their priorities had changed somewhat, so they wanted more illumination in the hallway. So they dropped the height of the door down, and this is a new door. Sometimes they just chop off the top panels on the door, and it makes the proportions of the door look a bit strange. But in this instance, there's a whole new door has been made, and it is a door from the 1820s, because we have fielded panels on the top, and then we have this very fine bead on the panels below. And what's interesting is that in the 1800s, doors like this were thought to be secure, but at that time it was readily available for carpenters to buy their tools from a hardware shop, and you could buy a brace and bit, and you could buy a pad saw, and you could drill a hole in each of these corners, and you could cut along the join, which is a thin tongue which goes into a rebate in the centre rail, and you could cut that panel out and climb in. So quite often on these doors we find that they have steel plate on the reverse, or they have lots of blacksmith kind of ribbing of cast iron, which are strips of cast iron and then all screwed or nailed with heavy cleats at the side to give added protection so nobody can get through the door. But apart from that, it's very nice. The stone looks like it's been replaced. This would have originally been, looks like cement, but originally it would have been a piece of Portland stone, like next door, for example, which is extremely well worn. And this first one here is charming. If we can just have a look up here, Leo, if you can stroll with me, and we'll cut off at this point, and then we can have a look inside. But I'd quite like to look at the wear on the first step, which is Portland stone, so that has had many footfall on it, and you can see the level of wear. Still not as worn as Goodwin Court, which I believe are medieval steps to the front doors. Steps give you a huge amount of information about occupancy of the house. This brickwork was done by Emma Simpson 20 years ago. Emma Simpson is a very fine bricklayer, brickworker, brick repairer, and she works predominantly at the Royal Palaces, Hampton Court. And this is a really fine example of her work. And I asked Emma a number of years ago to come down to Aubry Street to have a look at number 37 when we were doing brick repairs on it. And I was surprised that to find that she'd worked on the house opposite. So really nice. And again, here we have a bricked up window with air bricks in it, but no grill in the pavement and no light well. And I think it will be an issue to get a light well reinstated. I have worked on houses in Bermondsey, for example, where we had a window. We excavated it from the inside and we found that the earth would come out and there would be a light well here in brickwork coming up to a certain level, and then all the council have done is paved over it. So whose land this is, I don't know, whether it belongs to the council or to the curtilage of the property. But it would be nice to get the windows open. They've all got air bricks in them. I haven't got air bricks on these ones over here because I think the concrete is too thick to actually reinstate the windows. I was asked to advise on that 20 years ago, and my consideration was that it would cause, the concrete's been poured, would cause too much damage to the building for the benefit of having windows in there. I still would have done it, I think, but I would have found a sympathetic way of getting the light and the air and the ventilation. And I think it's possible to do it to these houses here. But obviously you need to speak to the conservation officers about that, and it would need a little bit of sensitive kind of negotiation. This is what I was talking about earlier with the poor repair of the road. It would be nice to think, as these houses are grade 2 star, and this is such an important street, that maybe one day this will be excavated. All these corbels that are here are going to be just chucked in the hole, that they can be reinstated and you can have a nice paved road again. We live in hope. Okay, welcome back, folks. We're inside now, and you can see I'm going to have to gradually undressing, so I've taken my hat off. I'm going to have to take my neck scarf off because I'm going to be hyperventilating in a minute because it's surprisingly warm in here. What's interesting about the house, I mentioned that this is an early door. Sometimes they put strapping or panels on the back to make it more secure. But you can see where the earlier door was. The earlier door would have been an 8-foot door right up to the top of the frame. And for that door to open, the cornice has been cut back. So you will see that if these books weren't here, that the door would fit in the recess that's been created with the timber cornice that we have up there. So it's a really nice detail. And then on the other side, just spin you around, we have it finished off really nicely with a right angle. You take the profile of the face of the timber and you turn it on the end to get the angle and to get the profile. And that's such a beautiful way to finish it off. The joiners and the carpenters that built these houses really knew what they were doing. This is extremely high status. And I was quite surprised when I came in the other day and had a look at this. There is no structural movement in this house. There is no damage to it. Over the years, people have looked after this. And I know that the GLC took lots of these houses, whether it was with compulsory purchase or not, I don't know, because they were due to be demolished in the 1950s, and that ran through to the 1970s. And lots of the families were dispersed and people were moved out of the area for new social housing. And then these ran down in what people refer to these as slums. And there's no way this building is a slum. It was built as a high status residence, and it still is today, much desired. And the decoration and the painting on this house and the wallpaper, this was wallpapered, in my opinion, around about 1960s, I would have thought. It's been nicely wallpapered. I mean, it's all straight. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a little bit of movement there in the split in the panel behind. But the painting is quite nice. Somebody who painted this obviously knew what they were doing. It looks like it's been professionally painted. Excuse me. A few dripples here and there. But what one would do with this now is to wash this down with a product called sugar soap, which you can buy online. And it's an agent, washing agent, soap, to clean it prior to painting. Sand it down lightly and then paint it. And in some instances you want to flatten it off where there's a bit of dribbling here and there. But basically what you've got is a house that's already undercoated. This has got some of the finest undercoating on it that you could ever wish to have, and it would be stupid and foolish to try and remove this, burn it off, or do anything with it other than use it to your best advantage, and that is to overpaint. Really nice entrance arch here, and two pilasters either side in the classical style. And what's interesting is that the keystone at the top that we have here is very similar to the keystones that are used as decoration in the church. So we can feel sure, I can feel sure, very confident, that the carpenters that worked on this would have been seeing the work that was done on the church, which was built first, and then these were built after. So, really interesting, fascinating detail. But all timber, all Baltic pine. It's all coming from Scandinavia, Russia, and out of the Baltic. And it's wild-grown timber, so if you were to drill into this or work with this at all, you'll find that it has a huge amount of resin in it and a lot of turpentine, a lot of oil. And sometimes when we're working with these early timbers and we're planing it or sanding it or doing joinery, because we tend to collect as much old timber as we can and then reuse it, that when you cut into it, you get a sense of what the sawmills and the timber yards would have smelt like in the Baltic, because it is just so resinous. Fantastic. So these houses are all about the touch, the smell, the kind of the appreciation, and just the quality of the craftsmanship. And I know that we've got a nice bit of detailing here again where the rail finishes, and it's just turned around so nicely and so delicately, just finished off. Beautiful. Really nice. I really do admire these early Baroque houses. And the staircase is something quite remarkable. Now, normally with a staircase, you find that it diminishes in size and grandeur as you go up to the top floors, but this stays exactly the same as it is, and it's as good at the top as it is at the bottom. So this is really a kind of over-egged, really. This is really kind of quality on steroids. This is fantastic work. And these spindles, to achieve all of these in a unified shape, is quite remarkable. I mean, they had lathes that could actually carve these and could actually, in the early days, they were cut by hand. These have never done anything other than sit quite happily where they are since this house was first built. So this is lovely, nice to see. Very nice work. And this rather nice pommel that we have here. Lovely. I mean, this is so, you can imagine the fighting ships and the sailing ships of the 1700s. They would have all this detailing actually on the boat. It would be exactly the same, and they had this level of decoration on the staircases internally on the boat for the captain's quarters, and the captain's quarters would have been panelled out in exactly the same way. The only difference being is that you would have lifted up the bottom panels, hooked them up here, and then you'd have a cannon which would fire out through a gun port. So you'd have the captain's room would be very much like the one we're going to look in now, and then all of a sudden it would be turned into a kind of place of fighting and survival. So let's have a look in here. Nice room. I've explained to everyone, I can't see that this would be a huge amount of problem to decorate this. It's got an encruster on the ceiling, Artex, and I think they've done that because the lime ceiling is probably cracked. But I quite like seeing the cracks on the lime ceilings because it tells you where the stresses are on the lime and the laths which are above it, and they can easily be repaired if you know where they are. When you put this kind of junk over the top, it's disguising too much. But I think that because I can see where the light fitting was here, there's a little bit of pale blue lime plaster, and I feel as though if you had a stripping knife, a wallpaper knife, you could actually just start peeling some of this material off, and I would think it would separate from the lime. Nice room, fantastic fireplace. If I can spin you around, Leo, so that you can have a look at this fireplace. Lots of decoration on here, which some of it is slightly lost because of the painting, but you could put a poultice on here. There are products out there which are a chalk-based material that have got a paint stripper contained within them, and you put a poultice on and cover it in plastic and let it sweat and let it peel it off. And you can peel it back just to check it every hour, just to make sure you're not damaging it, because I haven't actually done any investigation on these fireplaces, but part of it here is broken off, and the same on the other side. So this could be plaster that could be repaired, or it could be intentional. I mean, it's got an edge on it there. Maybe it hasn't broken. Maybe that's intentional. I don't know. It does look a bit odd, I have to say. I think that should finish as a proper roundel on there. It's just a little bit misleading with the paint on the edge there. But that would peel away and look very smart, very nice, and you'll get your definition back. But as the rest of the paint, I would leave all this and just sand it and lightly sand it, and then overpaint it. And when you're sanding it, you have to make sure you're wearing a face mask and obviously protective gear, because some of this undercoats that you've got on here will be lead paint, and you don't want to start inhaling airborne lead paint, especially when it's as a dust. So that's another reason why it's best left on there. All in all, very nice room, and so nice and light, and it is so quiet when you think we're just off of Deptford High Street and we're off of the main road that goes from Deptford to Greenwich. Nothing, quiet, very quiet. You could actually do some really serious writing, studious work in this room. And I can appreciate that the guys that were here with all these books, they're probably sat in here with this, scribing away. It's very peaceful. Let's have a look at the other rooms. But we're in the back room now at Aubry Street. It's dark, it's dusty, it's too many books, too untidy, needs to be sorted. The only merit in here is the nice fireplace. And again, it's got broken corners on it, so I suspect that's a little bit of a weakness on these fire surrounds. And here you can see that this has got the original stone here, and we've got a curve back to the fireplace, but we haven't got an insert. I would expect to find a hob grate in there. There isn't one. I would have expected to find some form of heating in there from the 1950s or 60s or 70s, but there is nothing. It's just been rendered. So there's a little bit open to interpretation as to what might have been in there. But the fire surround looks nice. You just need a nice insert to finish it off. Interesting how the fireplaces in these back rooms throughout the whole building are at an angle in the corner of the room, which is to be expected to be found in an early house, 1710, first 20 years of the 18th century. So this is quite nice. All this boxing here is probably covering up hideous ancient central heating that has oversized pipes and completely unnecessary, and a modern system would be, this house would benefit from a modern heating system, that's for sure. And it can be put in quite sensitively, but someone has put the boxing in and done quite a nice job of matching in the timber cornice around the top. So whoever's done it has done it with a little bit of thought and a bit of appreciation to the quality of the building, which I'm surprised about. So I thought they would have when they put the heating in back in the day, 1950s, 60s, and considering this was considered as a slum and due for demolition, I can't believe that they would have done anything quite so nice and sensitive. But this house has been well looked after. So shame on you, whoever was responsible for marking these buildings down for demolition. Should never happen. Fortunately, it didn't with these ones. We need to say something about the listing status, and that is grade 2 star. So the listing status in the UK is that you have grade 2, which is only 20%, 10% maybe of the building stock, and then you have grade 2 star, which is only 10% of that small amount. So even more important. And they don't get a listing lightly. They get these buildings are listed because they are of architectural merit, and that's why they're being looked after. And the listing came about after the Second World War, when the Ancient Monuments Department of the government was first set up in the 1880s, I believe. And that was due to pressure by William Morris in the footsteps of Ruskin and Carlyle, who were advocates of conservation and looking after our historic fabric, because so much of it was being pulled down to make new building materials or just wantonly destroyed because it was in the way. But it was Carlyle and Ruskin and William Morris who set up the SPAB, Society of Protection of Ancient Buildings, to safeguard the interests of these fantastic historic buildings. Now that was running, from that the National Trust was born, and later on Historic England, English Heritage were all born out of the Ancient Monuments Department, government department. And then after the Second World War, there was a very good idea to set up through the RIBA, that's the Royal Institute of British Architects, and they appointed 300 architects to go around the country to work out the merits of all the buildings that had been damaged during bombing and how they should actually be repaired and how they should be looked after, demolished even in some cases because they were beyond repair. But it was the rebirth really after the Second World War. And then slightly later on in the 1970s, I believe, or from the 1947 Building Act, it was decided to go slightly further with the listing and look after domestic and residential properties. And that's when the listings such as this were imposed. And people came out, those who were educated came out and looked at these buildings and said whether they should be Grade 2 or Grade 2 star. And these buildings in Aubry Street, with the exception of the 2 or 3 on the opposite side of the road, which are Grade 2, everything else is Grade 2 star. So I think it's worth engaging with the conservation officer and discussing your plans with them and to show them around the house. I'm sure lots of them will be pleased to be invited in. And what you really want to do is to make sure that you're doing works which are beneficial to the house, not detrimental. You have to use traditional materials and traditional paints and treat the building with respect. But I can't emphasize enough the importance of the conservation officers and the fact if it wasn't for such dedicated work, most of these buildings would be lost. And we are just custodians of these buildings. We're here ready for the next generation to appreciate and to understand part of our historic building legacy. We're now in the back room on the first floor of Aubry Street. It's just as untidy as everywhere else and it's dusty. And as I go around, I keep picking rubbish up. So you might see me with a bag of rubbish as I go. I can't stop tidying up. Why wouldn't you stack these books neatly? Anyway, that's got nothing to do with the historic building. Nice bit of panelling, as I mentioned just now. We have panelling on this side, but we've got a modern plasterboard wall on the other side, which really should be a reflection of what we've got here as a wall divider. Completely original, very nice detail. Needs a little bit of attention here and there, but nice door. And here's what I was mentioning earlier on, when you have the original doors, you can see that it's got an early rim lock on there. The panel, the rail, runs through with the panelling. So it's just a continuation of the door detail. So it should just look like the rest of the panelled room. Nice big flat panel. On lots of this early panelling, this is a fielded panel. You can feel it going into the rebate that we have here. But this panel is not a 6-panel door, which is making a statement. This is a flat panel to represent the same as we have here with flat panels. So that's part of its decoration. Don't know what this is doing. This is a Victorian door that someone has put in here. And this looks like a later intervention going through. I have a suspicion that some of these houses, were used as dormitories. We have photographs of some of these full of children's cots and nurses, and some of them are like orphanages. They were a high-grade dwelling that was fit for purpose. And lots of these were turned over to religious orders or local hospitals, for local childcare or whatever. It's a substantial building. There's nothing wrong with it. It's all perfectly straight. But I can imagine how this would have been used for looking after people. Yeah, so go in here now and have a look at the front room, which is just as untidy. But the thing about this room is the quality of the lights when you come in here. This is such a lovely light room. Really fantastic. I mean, it's remarkable really when you think we're so close to the main road and so close to the main road that goes from Surrey Quays and Deptford to Greenwich, and there's no audible noise at all. And these aren't double glazed units, these are single glazed windows as they should be. And there's no need to do anything to these except possibly putting a little bit of draft proofing in around the edges. And if you're worried about there's no noise, if you're worried about heat loss, then you close your shutters. And that's going to give you the same benefit as double glazing or secondary glazing. So you don't need to worry about that if you have a historic building. This is a very warm building. And the more you go around it, it doesn't smell of damp. It only smells of old books and dust. But it doesn't smell of damp and it has no condensation. Right, okay, we've done this floor. We're now going up to the next floor. I've done a little bit of book tidying while you were away. Let's go up. But notice the spindles, handrail. Someone's had an effort of kind of stripping this, which is a real mistake, because this is what you end up with, which is all this damaged timber that now needs to be filled and repaired and worked on. Whereas if you just left it as it was and just over painted it, well, you've lost all your primers, all your original paint on there. It almost looks as though someone's taken the spindles out and had them dipped in caustic soda, which has caused them to split in places. Caused so much damage by taking the paint off. Just, for God's sake, just leave the paint where it is. Yeah, so someone's moved this wall over to make a bigger bathroom. For what? Gaining probably 300 millimetres. And again, we've got empty boxes, empty rubbish, nothing of any merit in here. Ghastly, ghastly bathroom. But obviously, where's the toilet? The toilet is here, underneath this writing desk. It's exactly what you need on top of a toilet. So the soil goes out there and then drops down through the back room, which is why all that boarding is there. You're better off putting the toilets on the external walls if that's what you want to do. And then you can run the soil out the back. Obviously some houses, especially grade 2 style, you don't want to see the soil pipe on the outside, but you can find a better place of dropping it down than in the middle of the house. What's happened is exactly what will happen, is that you will get ingress of water which goes down and damages the floors below. This is just an unsatisfactory solution. It'd be far better a bedroom and have the bathroom in the room below, so you haven't got far to go to the toilet and the shower and the bathroom or whatever you want, which will be on the next floor. But that's all part of its reconfiguration, and that's where the conservation officers come in, because you'd have to get listed building consent for any works that we do, because this is changing to the structure of the building. But we're on the top floor here now, and we've still got this fine staircase, wide staircase running up to the top floor. You can see where the slope of the roof is on the over the top of the stairwell. You've got your nice lime ceiling here. This is really nice, and this is the Artex we were talking about earlier on, which you will just be able to peel off because it's not adhered to the lime. This is really good, a really nice ceiling, really sound ceiling. And the Artex, what's happened is that the lime, you've got a bathroom here, so the condensation from the bathroom, the heat, the steam from the bathroom will migrate out of here, and the Artex has trapped it because this is a cement-based material, a brittle cement-based material. It's not going to take up any moisture, and the moisture has gone between the Artex and the lime ceiling. Now the ceiling has taken up any moisture, any condensation. That's what it does. It's self-healing and it resets. That's why you need to keep the surfaces open. You don't put any plastic paints on it and you don't put Artex on it. You keep it open and you either lime wash it or you distemper it with soft distemper. But the idea is that these ceilings have to take up the moisture. And in doing that, these ceilings and any lime work that you put in a building is carbon neutral, because it's taking out the carbon in the atmosphere. and it's absorbing it into the lime. You know, and that's why when you look at lime works and people say, oh, what's the benefits between lime and cement? Cement is actually creating more pollution. You can't do anything with cement once it comes off the wall, and it's virtually like a stone. Where with lime, you can crunch it back up and you can put it back in the mix. It's a chalk. So therefore, it's quite a good end product that you can reuse. But because it's a chalk, it will absorb moisture. And that's what, there's a radio program on Radio 4 in London in this last week, and it was talking about self-healing buildings. It's like, oh, God's sakes. And they're saying the ancient Egyptians knew about it, and so did the Romans. And it was this miracle material called lime. And you think, oh, God, how long is it going to take before people realise that lime is the material to use on historic buildings and also in new build, because it has so many good virtues to using it. You know, why wouldn't you? It's only because cement and gypsum plaster sets quicker, and you can bodge it, todge it, and out the door. So we need to encourage more people to look at the qualities of lime. And in the same respect, we need to get more people that are capable of applying and working with lime, and more suppliers selling it and advising and educating the public as to how to use it. I think we're pretty much done on this building now. This is the little attic space, and I've just showed you the slope on the wall here above the stairwell, and then we've got a corresponding slope on the front of the building here, and you can see the parapet outside with its Portland stone coping stones on there that have been exactly the same as the Master Shipwright's house down in the dockyards. Dates from 1706 when this building was constructed. And what's interesting, same with the shipyards, is that the stone is sloped towards the back. And the reason for that is that it sheds its water back into the lead gutter, and then the lead gutter discharges the water into the rainwater hoppers, and then the downpipe, and then down to the ground. So it's a very nice detail, really thought out. The same as the rest of the house. This is a real quality build of this house. Really nice, delightful, lovely bedroom, absolutely lovely. And I was concerned about this strange little arrangement on the landing here, thinking to myself, well, you really need a nice landing, and it seems to compromise the staircase coming up. But having a look round the corner here, this is part of its ancient construction, because this has got really large laths, and these are the laths here. I'll just show you. I'm not sure about the surface finish on it, because the surface finish is cracked. It looks a little bit impervious. But if I point that out there, these are the laths. These are riven battens, so they go the whole width, and then nailed with these handmade blacksmith nails onto the joist or the spars which are behind it, and then it has lime work on the top. Now this material here is lime. This is lime, so this is nice and soft, and this is what you would expect it to be. You wouldn't want it any more strong than that. That's really nice and soft, exactly what you want. That's going to take up all the moisture and any condensation. And then someone's rendered it in this material here, which is a cement-based material, and that is far too hard. So that's why that's cracked. This hasn't cracked. You'll notice this is absolutely perfect, but this is cracked up here because it's too hard. It just needs someone working on this house that knows what they're doing. Oh, if only I was a younger man. This is I'm so enthusiastic about this building because it's so easily repaired, and I keep saying all the virtues of this building is fantastic. Got a plank door, everything about it is lovely, nice. Board's been changed, obviously it's had some intervention. All in all, what works have been done sympathetically, and in my mind quite livable. And I've been saying to people that if you got rid of all the books and tidied it up and gave it a good old clean and a sweep and a hoover and get rid of all the debris, I mean, quite frankly, with this room here, same as the other rooms, you could clean this, wash it, put a coat of paint on it, and put a carpet down. You've got a bedroom. You know, you could do this in a weekend, so you'd have a bedroom. You've obviously got problems with bathroom and toilet, and you may want to think about putting a temporary bath and a toilet downstairs, for example, out the way while you work on this. But I would have these two rooms as bedrooms, and then put a bathroom slightly further down in the middle of the house, say at the back, just because of convenience. And you know, it's not bad going migrating in the night one landing to go to the bathroom. But here you've got to come all the way up the stairs to be able to use this bathroom and this toilet. So if you are interested, leave comments below, because I'd like to know what you think about this little guided tour that I've done. So leave comments below. Keep watching the YouTube channel, and I'd like to thank Leo for doing the filming, such magnificent work and dedicated, and Simon, who's sitting downstairs very quietly, who has organised all of this. And without Simon, none of this venture would have been possible. So thank you to you both, and thank you for watching. And as I say, I hope you enjoy and keep following. All the best. Bye for now.